The twin suns of planet Marin rose slowly over the green hills, painting the sky in soft gold. Birds that were not from Earth sang among the tall trees, and a warm wind carried the sweet smell of flowering grass. In a small house near the edge of the colony lived an old couple named Taryn and Mira. Their home was simple, built with wood and metal from old colony ships, but it was filled with warmth and life. Taryn sat on the porch every morning with a cup of herbal tea watching the sunrise. His eyes were wrinkled with age but still sharp. He had once been an engineer who worked on the great starships that carried humans across space. Now he spent his days fixing tools for neighbors, repairing broken machines, and keeping the garden running. Mira was always nearby, caring for her plants. She loved flowers, especially those she had grown from earth seeds. Red tulips, white daisies, and bright yellow sunflowers filled their yard. People often said that Mira's garden was like a piece of old earth hidden on a new world. They had been married for 60 long years. They came to Marin as young colonists, full of energy and dreams. Taryn used to design ship engines while Mira helped build greenhouses to feed the early settlers. Together they faced storms, food shortages, and the long, dark winters of the planet. Over time, the small colony grew into a strong community, and Taryn and Mira became a part of its heart. Everyone respected them, not only for their wisdom but for their kindness. Their days followed a gentle rhythm. Every morning, Taryn would check the solar panels and repair the irrigation system, while Mira watered the plants and hummed old songs from Earth. They shared lunch under the shade of the big tree near their home. In the evenings, they sat together by the fire, telling stories about the early days of colonization. The young ones from the colony often came to listen. Mira's voice was soft but full of life. When she spoke about the stars, it felt like she had seen things far beyond what others could imagine. For Taryn, life felt perfect. He often told his friends that he had everything he ever wanted: a peaceful home, a loyal wife, and the quiet beauty of nature around him. But lately, he began to notice small changes in Mira. She would stop her work suddenly and stare at the horizon for long minutes. Sometimes when she thought no one was watching, she would whisper strange words that Taryn had never heard before. Her eyes would shine faintly, almost like they were catching some hidden light. One evening, Taryn sat reading near the fireplace while Mira stood at the window looking at the stars. The room was warm and quiet except for the soft crackle of fire. Taryn looked up and smiled at her. "You always look at the stars as if they are calling your name," he said in a gentle voice. Mira turned to him and smiled faintly. "Maybe they are," she replied. Taryn laughed softly, but a thought stayed in his mind. Mira was not only looking at the stars with longing, but with recognition. It was as if she knew them personally, as if they were not distant balls of fire but familiar places. A few days later, something else caught his attention. It was late at night and Taryn woke up to find the bed empty. Mira was not there. He called her name quietly, but she did not answer. Worried, he put on his coat and stepped outside. The air was cold and the night was silent except for the rustling of leaves. He followed a faint light coming from the forest near their home. Through the trees, he saw Mira standing before a large stone half buried in the ground. The stone was glowing softly with blue light. She had both her hands on its surface and was whispering something. Taryn froze. The glow spread across her fingers and made her face look young again for a moment. Then the light faded and she turned away. He quickly stepped back so she would not see him. His heart was beating fast. When Mira returned home, he pretended to be asleep. She slipped into bed quietly, as if nothing had happened. The next morning, Taryn could not stop thinking about what he saw. He watched her carefully all day. She moved slowly, like she was tired, but her smile was calm. During breakfast, he asked, "Mira, were you out last night?" She looked at him with surprise and then nodded. "I could not sleep." "I went for a short walk," she said. "In the forest?" he asked. "Yes," she replied. "There is a tree there that I like." Her answer was simple, but Taryn could see that she was hiding something. Later that day, when she went to visit their neighbor, Taryn walked to the forest again. It was quiet and sunlight filtered through the leaves. He found the same place he had seen the night before. The stone was still there, large and smooth, covered with faint carvings that looked like symbols. When he touched it, a mild vibration passed through his hand, almost like a heartbeat. The stone was warm even though the air was cool. Taryn stepped back. He had seen many types of machines in his life, but this was not any human technology he knew. It It seemed alive, and it made him uneasy. He looked around carefully and saw no signs of anyone else. He decided not to tell anyone yet. He wanted to talk to Mira first, but part of him feared what he might hear. That evening, he finally asked her, "Mira, I saw something strange in the forest. A glowing stone. Do you know what it is?" She stopped moving for a second and then smiled gently. "It is nothing, Taryn, just an old habit. You do not need to worry." Her voice was calm, but Taryn could tell she was lying. He had known her for 60 years, and she had never lied to him before. That night he could not sleep. He kept thinking about the glow, the carvings, and the way her face looked young for a moment. The next morning he decided to investigate quietly. He went to the colony's main computer archives, where he still had access as a retired engineer. He looked for any record of unusual materials or old survey data from the area near their home. The results surprised him. There were no records of that part of the forest. It was marked as restricted and unexplored. Taryn frowned. He knew that was impossible. Every inch of the colony had been mapped. He remembered the early days when he worked on the scanning drones himself. Why would that part be restricted? He tried to open the files but found them locked under a higher level of security. The system required an old code from the founding days. He left the archives with more questions than answers. On his way home, he met Mira returning from the garden. She smiled at him, but her eyes looked distant again. "You are thinking too much, old man," she said kindly. "You should rest." Taryn smiled back but said nothing. Inside, his curiosity grew stronger. As the days passed, Mira became quieter. Sometimes she forgot people's names. Once she called Taryn by another name he had never heard before. When he asked her about it, she said it was a name from a dream. She also started spending more time in the forest, always returning before sunset. The neighbors noticed her change too, whispering that maybe age was catching up with her. Taryn refused to believe it was only age. Something else was happening. He began writing notes about her strange behavior, the times she left and the direction she took. He wanted to find a pattern. One afternoon, the colony doctor came to visit. He examined Mira and said that her health was fine for her age. Her heartbeat, breathing, and memory were normal. "Maybe she is just tired," the doctor said. But Taryn could not rest easy. He knew Mira's eyes better than anyone. There was a secret hiding behind them. That night, Taryn made a decision. If Mira would not tell him the truth, he would find it himself. He packed a small scanner, a light, and his old engineering tablet. When Mira went to bed, he waited until she fell asleep, then quietly left for the forest. The stone was waiting for him, glowing softly under the moonlight. He set his scanner near it and began to record the energy readings. The screen filled with strange data. The energy waves were not natural. They repeated in patterns, almost like a heartbeat mixed with a signal. Taryn frowned. It was not just a rock. It was something alive or something made by a mind far beyond human technology. He touched the stone again, and this time it reacted more strongly. The carvings began to shift slightly, forming new shapes. The glow grew brighter. Taryn stepped back, his heart racing. He did not understand what he was seeing, but one thing was clear. This was not human-made. He turned off the scanner and went back home, trying not to wake Mira. He lay in bed, staring at the ceiling. His thoughts were full of questions. Who was Mira talking to in the forest? What was that stone? And why did she look younger when she touched it? As the first light of dawn entered their room, he looked at Mira sleeping beside him. Her face looked peaceful and beautiful, the same face he had loved for 60 years. But now he was no longer sure if he truly knew who she was. He whispered softly, "What are you hiding from me, Mira?" Outside, the birds of Maron sang as if nothing had changed, but deep inside Taryn's heart, he felt that his quiet and perfect life had just begun to crack. The next few days passed quietly in the colony, but inside Taryn's heart there was no peace. Every time he looked at Mira, he felt the weight of the secret between them. She still smiled, still made his favorite tea, still hummed her soft songs, but something about her had changed. Her smile seemed practiced now, and her eyes often wandered toward the forest. Taryn tried to keep his mind busy. He fixed a neighbor's broken harvester and repaired some of the solar panels on the roof. But every moment he was away from her, his thoughts went back to the glowing stone. The image of that blue light pulsing under her hands would not leave him. It was not just a rock. It was something powerful, something old. One afternoon, Taryn decided to follow Mira again. He waited until she finished lunch and went out with a basket, saying she wanted to collect herbs. He followed her at a distance, staying quiet and careful. The air was warm and the forest was filled with the sound of insects and birds. Mira moved with slow steps, her silver hair shining in the sunlight. She walked deeper into the trees, far beyond the path most colonists used. Taryn hid behind a large tree as she stopped in a small clearing. The glowing stone stood there, half covered in moss, but it shone faintly as soon as she approached. Mira placed the basket down and knelt in front of it. Her lips moved silently as if she was speaking in a language Taryn had never heard. The stone answered her with soft pulses of light, like it was alive. He wanted to step forward and ask her what she was doing, but something stopped him. The moment looked sacred, and for the first time, Taryn felt like he was intruding on something beyond his understanding. He stayed hidden until she finished and turned to leave. When she was gone, he came closer to the stone. It was cool now, no longer glowing. He placed his hand on its surface, but this time there was no reaction. It was just a silent piece of rock again. Still, Taryn could feel a faint hum under his palm. He whispered softly, "What are you?" Back at home, Mira acted as if nothing had happened. She cooked dinner and talked about the weather. Taryn watched her carefully. Her face looked tired, and there was a softness in her voice that he had never heard before. She asked him to sit by the fire with her, and they watched the flames together in silence. Later that night, when she went to sleep, Taryn sat awake for a long time. He thought about the files he had tried to open in the colony's archive. The restricted area, the missing data, and the stone's strange power were connected somehow. He decided to find the truth, even if it meant breaking a few rules. The next morning, Taryn walked to the central hub of the colony, an old dome made of transparent metal. Inside were the communication systems, research logs, and the main computer that stored every record from the first days of colonization. The younger technicians greeted him warmly. Everyone knew Taryn as one of the founders of the colony. He smiled back and said he wanted to check some old system logs. He waited until the others left for lunch, then slipped into the restricted archive room. The door recognized his old engineer badge and opened with a soft sound. Inside, dust floated in the light from the windows. Old computer screens lined the walls, showing data from decades ago. Taryn sat down at one of the consoles and typed in his old security code. The system asked for a higher-level key, one that only founding officers would have had. Taryn thought for a moment and tried an old trick. He used a backdoor code he had built himself during the early years of colonization. The screen flickered, then opened. Inside the archives, he found reports from the first survey teams that landed on Marin. They described the planet's air, soil, and wildlife. But one file caught his attention. It was marked Incident Report 0A17, Unidentified Object. The report said that before the first settlement was built, a strange metallic structure had been found near the forest. The early team recorded high-energy readings and faint signals coming from it. The report ended with a short note that said, "Site sealed. No further investigation authorized." Taryn frowned. There was no mention of what happened to the object or where it was buried. He looked through more files and found another note that said, "Possible life form detected, non-human." His hands trembled slightly. He stared at the words again, non-human. He saved the files to his tablet and quickly left the archive. Outside, the suns were already beginning to set. He walked home slowly, his mind filled with confusion. Could the stone in the forest be part of that old object? And why had Mira been visiting it? When he reached home, Mira was waiting for him on the porch. She smiled warmly, but there was something sad in her eyes. "You went to the colony today," she said softly. "Yes," Taryn replied. "I had some work to finish," she nodded. "You work too much, even after all these years." He tried to smile but could not. Her tone sounded calm, but it was as if she knew exactly where he had gone. That night he tried to talk to her again. "Mira, do you remember when we first came here?" he asked while they sat by the fire. "Do you remember the early days when we were still building shelters and planting crops?" "Of course," she said. "Those were hard days, but good ones." "Do you remember hearing stories about a strange object found near this area?" Mira's hands froze for a moment. Then she slowly placed her cup down and looked into the fire. "Why do you ask that?" "I found something in the archives," Taryn said. "Something that was hidden. There were reports of an object found near our forest, I think it is still there. She stayed silent for a long moment. Finally, she said, You should not look for things that were meant to be left alone. Mira, Taryn said gently, I saw you there. I saw you with that stone. Please tell me what it is. She looked at him, her eyes shining in the firelight. It is nothing that can harm you, Taryn. It is part of my past, that is all. Your past? He repeated. What do you mean? But she did not answer. She stood up and walked to the window. Her voice was calm but distant. Please do not ask me again. Taryn sat in silence. He felt both fear and sadness. He had shared 60 years of his life with her, but now she seemed like a stranger. Over the next few days, Mira's condition worsened. She became weak and often stayed in bed. The doctor visited again and said her body was fine, but her energy was fading. Taryn stayed by her side, helping her eat and sleep. But at night, when she thought he was asleep, she still went to the forest. He heard her footsteps, soft and slow, leaving the house and returning hours later. One evening, the colony's communication tower picked up a strange signal from the north. The operator told Taryn that it was short and weak, but it repeated in a pattern. When Taryn listened to the recording, his blood ran cold. The pattern sounded almost the same as the hum he had heard from the glowing stone. That night, he decided to follow Mira again, but this time he carried his tablet to record everything. The forest was quiet and dark, and the air felt heavy. He saw her standing in front of the glowing stone once more. She was weaker now, but as her hands touched the surface, the light grew stronger, surrounding her in a soft blue glow. Taryn watched as she whispered the same strange words. Suddenly, the stone emitted a small wave of light that spread through the trees. Birds flew away in fright. Taryn fell to his knees, his heart racing. He realized the stone was not only reacting to her, it was communicating with something far away. When the light faded, Mira turned around and saw him. For the first time, she looked afraid. Taryn, she said softly, you should not be here. He walked closer, his eyes full of questions. You have to tell me, Mira, what is this? Who are you talking to? She looked down, her hands trembling. It is not what you think, she whispered. I was only saying goodbye. Goodbye to what? He asked. To a part of me that cannot stay, she said. Her voice was filled with sadness, and Taryn did not understand. She walked past him, weak and pale, and returned home without another word. The next morning, Mira stayed in bed, too tired to move. Taryn sat beside her, holding her hand. She smiled faintly and said, You are a stubborn man. You always look for answers even when they might hurt you. He squeezed her hand gently. I just want to understand, he said. You will soon, she whispered. But promise me one thing. When the time comes, do not be afraid. Her words stayed in his mind for the rest of the day. That evening, Taryn went back to the forest one last time. The stone was still there, glowing softly. He placed his hand on it and whispered, Please tell me who you are. The carvings began to move again, and for a moment a faint voice filled his mind. It was not human, but it was calm and gentle. The voice said, She is one of us, and she chose you. Then the light faded, leaving Taryn standing alone in the dark. He returned home, his heart heavy with confusion and love. Mira was asleep, her breathing slow and peaceful. He sat beside her all night, holding her hand and watching her face. The morning sun rose slowly over the hills of Meron, casting soft golden light on the colony. Taryn had spent the entire night awake, thinking about the glowing stone and Mira's strange words. He could not sleep, and his mind raced with questions. Who, or what, was Mira, really? What had she been hiding for 60 years? Taryn decided that he could no longer wait. He had to find out the truth, even if it meant breaking rules he had followed his entire life. He took his old tablet, a scanner, and a small pack of supplies, then walked toward the forest before anyone else was awake. The colony was quiet, and the early birds chirped softly as he moved. The forest was dense and alive with strange colors of Meron. Tall trees with silver leaves swayed in the gentle wind. The path Taryn followed was familiar, yet it felt different. The air seemed heavier, almost charged. He could feel the hum of the stone long before he reached the clearing. When he arrived, the glowing stone was waiting for him. It pulsed softly in blue light, as if it had sensed his presence. Taryn set up his scanner and tablet, trying to record the energy patterns. The results were beyond anything he had seen in all his years as an engineer. The stone emitted a complex energy signature that resembled a heartbeat mixed with a communication signal. It was alive, and it seemed intelligent. Taryn stepped closer and touched the surface. The light grew brighter, and for a moment he felt a wave of warmth pass through him. He saw shapes flickering in the glow, symbols that shifted and changed as if they were alive. He whispered, "What are you trying to tell me?" The symbols disappeared, and the stone returned to a faint glow. Taryn frowned. He had to understand this. He remembered the restricted files he had found at the colony archives. They mentioned a non-human life form discovered before the settlement. Could this stone be connected to that life form? He returned home quietly, careful not to wake Mira. She was resting, her breathing steady, but her hand twitched slightly as if she had sensed his return. Taryn placed the tablet on the table and studied the recordings. Each pattern of energy from the stone was precise and deliberate. It was not random. It was a message, or perhaps a memory. That afternoon, Taryn returned to the colony archives. He used the backdoor access again, carefully avoiding detection. The older records were still there, stored in the deep system. He searched for anything related to unidentified objects and alien life forms. After hours of scanning, he found a report that chilled him. The report was from the first survey team that landed on Marin decades before humans settled there. It described a crash site in the northern forest. A metallic object had fallen from the sky. Energy readings had been extremely high, and the object seemed to be alive. There was a small figure near the crash, moving in ways no human could. The report said the figure disappeared before the humans could approach. There were no further records. The team had sealed the area and left, marking it as restricted. Taryn's mind raced. Could Mira be that figure? The thought was incredible, impossible even, yet every sign pointed to it. He remembered her eyes, the way they glowed softly at the stone. He remembered the strange words she had whispered. She had hidden something unimaginable for 60 years. He decided to look through her personal belongings. Mira had always been private, but she kept a small chest in the corner of their bedroom. Inside, he found old papers, a small metallic pendant, and a few tools he did not recognize. The pendant was shaped like a spiral star, similar to the symbols on the stone. When he held it, a faint warmth spread through his hand. Taryn felt a mix of fear and awe. He held the pendant carefully and thought of Mira. He remembered the first time he met her, when she had smiled and laughed as if the stars themselves had taught her joy. He remembered the life they had shared, the hardships of colonization, the building of their home, the planting of gardens, and the quiet evenings by the fire. Every memory now felt different. She had been hiding a truth he could never have imagined. He sat down and whispered to himself, "Mira, who are you?" That evening, Mira seemed weaker than usual. She stayed in bed, barely eating, barely speaking. Taryn held her hand, gently stroking her fingers. "Mira," he said softly, "I know there is something you have been hiding. Please, tell me the truth. I have lived with you for 60 years. I deserve to know." Mira looked at him, her eyes filled with sorrow. She tried to smile, but it did not reach her eyes. "Taryn," she whispered, "some truths are too heavy even after all these years. You must be ready." "I am ready," he said firmly. "I need to know, Mira. I cannot live with questions anymore." She closed her eyes, taking a deep breath. "Very well," she said softly. "I will tell you, but you must promise to stay calm. This is a truth humans were never meant to hear." Taryn held her hand tighter, his heart pounding. "I promise," he said. Mira began slowly. "I am not from this planet. I was not born human. Before humans settled here, a ship fell from the sky. It carried my people. We were explorers, observers of worlds. Our mission was peaceful, but our ship crashed in the northern forest. I was the only survivor." Taryn felt as if the ground beneath him had shifted. He stared at her, unable to speak. "I used what I learned from human technology to survive," Mira continued. I changed myself to look like a human, to blend in. I wanted a quiet life, a life of love, not war. I watched humans settle this world, build a colony, and grow as a people. And then I met you, Taryn. You were kind, patient, and full of life. You showed me what it meant to be human. That is why I stayed. Taryn shook his head in disbelief. You are telling me you have lived as a human for 60 years, hiding who you really are? Yes, Mira said, her voice trembling. I had to hide. My people, my true form, could not survive among humans. I only wanted to live quietly. I only wanted to love you. Taryn felt a wave of emotions: shock, awe, fear, and love. Every memory, every moment he had shared with her suddenly carried a new meaning. She had lived as a human, laughed with him, shared his hardships, and loved him. Yet all this time she had been something far beyond him. The stone, he said quietly. Is it connected to you? Mira nodded. It holds a part of me. My life force, my memories, my true form. It is the part of me that I cannot show to the world. The stone keeps me alive and allows me to maintain my human appearance. But it is failing, Taryn. I grow weaker each day. Taryn's hands shook. Weaker? Mira. What can I do? She took his hand and smiled faintly. You have already done everything. You loved me, cared for me, and stayed with me. That is enough. When the time comes, you will understand. You must not be afraid. Taryn held her close. He did not speak. His mind was full of questions, but he also felt a deep sense of wonder. The woman he had loved for 60 years was not entirely human. She had come from the stars, yet she had chosen him, chosen to live a life of love and kindness among humans. Over the next few days, Taryn studied the stone and the pendant she had given him. He learned that the energy from the stone could be mapped, measured, and even understood. Every pulse carried a fragment of Mira's past, a memory of her true self. He began to realize that her life was not just extraordinary, it was a bridge between two worlds. The neighbors noticed Mira's weakness and offered help, but Taryn quietly declined. This was something only he could witness, only he could understand. He spent hours by her side, holding her hand and watching the energy from the stone pulse softly in the corner of the room. One evening, he finally asked, Mira, will the humans ever know your truth? She smiled faintly. No, Taryn, that is not your burden to carry. I only wanted to live my life with you. My truth was ours to share. Taryn nodded. He understood, yet his mind could not stop racing with possibilities. He thought of the stars, the unknown worlds, and the life that had come to Marin long before humans arrived. He realized that Mira had given him not only 60 years of love, but also a glimpse into a universe far larger and more mysterious than he had ever imagined. That night, Taryn held her hand and whispered softly, I will stay with you until the end. I will not let anything take you from me. Mira closed her eyes, her breathing calm, and for the first time in weeks, she seemed at peace. Thank you, Taryn. Thank you for giving me a home. As he watched her sleep, Taryn knew that their life together had changed forever. The woman he had loved for 60 years was not entirely human, yet her heart, her soul, and her love had always been real. He felt a mix of fear and hope. Whatever came next, he would face it with her. The days on Marin passed slowly for Taryn. Mira grew weaker and each sunrise felt heavier than the last. Taryn spent every moment by her side, watching over her, helping her eat, and holding her hand when she slept. He had uncovered her secret, the truth that she was not human, but even knowing that, he felt helpless. He wanted to understand more. He wanted to help her, but he did not know how. One morning, Mira asked Taryn to sit closer. Her voice was soft, almost fading but filled with determination. Taryn, she whispered, you need to know everything. You have seen parts of my life, but you do not yet know the full truth. Taryn nodded, gripping her hand gently. I am ready, Mira, please tell me. She closed her eyes for a moment as if gathering strength. Then she began. Before humans arrived on Marin, I came from a distant planet. My people were explorers. We traveled to many worlds, studying, observing, and learning. Our mission was peaceful and we avoided interference. Our ship was equipped with advanced technology, unlike anything humans have ever built. It could blend with planets, communicate across distances, and store memories. But during one journey, our ship was damaged in a meteor storm. We crashed on this world. Taryn listened intently, the room quiet except for her faint breathing. How did you survive? He asked gently. I was the only one, she replied. The crash destroyed most of the ship and all my people. I was left alone, injured, and unable to call for help. I knew humans would eventually come, but I had to survive first. I used technology from the ship to change myself. I could take human form, speak their languages, and even age as they did. I learned everything about them from observation. I was careful. I watched the first settlers arrive and began living among them, choosing a quiet place to hide. That place became our home. Taryn swallowed hard. You have lived as a human all this time? Yes, she whispered. I watched, I learned, and I adapted. But when I met you, Taryn, everything changed. You were kind, patient, and full of life. You treated me as a person, not as a curiosity or a stranger. You gave me love. And in return, I chose to stay. I chose to live as a human, to share a life with you. That is why I never revealed my true self. Taryn felt his heart swell. Every memory of their life together now carried a new meaning. The laughter they shared, the quiet nights, the storms they survived, the meals they cooked together, and the gardens they tended. All of it was more extraordinary than he had ever imagined. And the stone, he said, pointing to the small glowing object in the corner. Is it part of your ship? Mira nodded. It is part of me. When I took human form, I could not survive without it. The stone holds my life force, memories, and true essence. It allows me to live as a human. It grows weaker as I grow older. Soon it will fail completely and I will not be able to maintain my disguise. Taryn's hands shook. So you are telling me that soon you will disappear? She smiled faintly, her eyes full of sadness. Not disappear, Taryn. I will return to my true form, but it will be the end of my life here among humans. That is why I asked you to promise me one thing. Do not be afraid. When the time comes, you must understand that I am still the same person you have loved all these years. Nothing has changed in that. Taryn took a deep breath, trying to absorb the truth. It was incredible. Mira had lived 60 years in human form, hiding a secret that could have shocked the entire colony. She had chosen to love him, to build a life with him, knowing that one day the truth would be revealed. His mind spun with the enormity of it, yet he felt a deep sense of wonder. Why did you hide it for so long? He asked softly. I feared that humans would not accept me, she replied. I wanted a quiet life, a life of love, not fear. I wanted to share happiness with you, Taryn. That was my choice, and I would make it again. Taryn held her hand tightly. I love you, Mira. I do not care what you are. You are still the same woman I married, the same woman I have spent my life with. Her eyes filled with tears. You have always understood me, even without knowing the truth. That is why I chose you. You saw me for who I was, not just my form. Over the next days, Taryn devoted himself to caring for her. He studied the stone, trying to understand its energy patterns. He discovered that it was not just a life support system. It was a repository of knowledge, memories, and consciousness. Every pulse carried fragments of her past, of her people, and the worlds she had visited. By touching it, Taryn could see fleeting images of alien landscapes, strange skies and cities built from materials he could not name. At night, he would sit beside her bed, holding her hand as she whispered stories from her past. She described her home planet, the technology of her people, and the journey that brought her to Marin. Taryn listened in awe. He realized that the woman he had loved was also a window into a universe far larger than humanity had ever known. One evening, Mira turned to him with a serious expression. Taryn, I need you to understand one more thing. My true form will emerge soon. You will see me as I really am. And it may frighten you at first, but remember, I am still the same person. My love, my memories, and my soul are unchanged. You must not let fear replace the love we share. Taryn nodded. I understand, Mira. I promise I will not be afraid. Days passed and Mira's health continued to decline. The stone's glow grew fainter, and the energy readings on Taryn's tablet showed that it was nearing the limit. Taryn felt a mixture of sorrow and awe. He had lived 60 years with an extraordinary being, and had only just discovered the full truth. Yet despite the revelations, he felt gratitude. He had been given the chance to love someone beyond imagination, someone who had chosen him from the stars themselves. The final day arrived quietly. Mira lay in bed, weak but serene. Taran held her hand, feeling the faint pulse of the stone beneath the blanket. The room was filled with soft light, the sun's casting a warm glow through the window. Mira smiled at him, her eyes still bright with life and wisdom. "Taran," she whispered, "it is time. You will see who I truly am. Remember my words. Fear nothing. I am still me." Taran nodded, tears in his eyes. He held her hand firmly, bracing himself for what was to come. The stone began to glow with intense light. Mira's form shimmered, and for a moment her human appearance seemed to flicker. Taran saw shapes of silver and blue, a form that radiated energy and wisdom. Her hair sparkled like starlight, and her eyes shone like small suns. The room was filled with a soft hum, the sound of energy and life intertwined. Taran felt a wave of emotion. Fear rose in him for a moment, but he remembered her words. He focused on the love he had shared with her for 60 years. The fear faded, replaced by awe and understanding. Mira's true form was beautiful, beyond anything he had imagined. She looked both alien and familiar, radiant with the essence he had loved for a lifetime. "Do you see me, Taran?" she whispered, her voice calm but filled with power. "Yes," he said, his voice trembling. "I see you. You are still Mira? You are still the woman I love?" She smiled, the light from her form softening. "Thank you, Taran. You have given me a life full of joy, love, and understanding. That is more than my people ever gave me. Now I can return to my true self, and I am at peace." Taran held her hand until the light dimmed. Slowly her form settled into a faint, shimmering presence. The stone glowed softly for the last time before becoming dormant. Mira's human form was gone, but her essence remained in the room, calm and serene. Taran felt her presence, her love, and her gratitude. He sat quietly, tears streaming down his face. He realized that life with Mira had always been extraordinary. She had come from the stars, chosen to live among humans, and given him a life filled with love, laughter, and meaning. Though her human body was gone, her spirit remained, leaving a lasting impression on the colony and on Taran's heart. That night, Taran placed the pendant she had given him on the small table beside the now dormant stone. He whispered softly, "You will always be with me, Mira. Always." Outside, the twin suns of Marin set over the hills, casting a golden glow on the colony. A gentle wind rustled the trees, and for a moment, it felt as if the forest itself was alive, carrying the presence of Mira, the being from the stars who had chosen love over everything else. Taran closed his eyes and remembered every moment with her. The laughter, the shared work, the stories, and the quiet nights. He understood that some truths were incredible beyond imagination, yet love could make them real. Mira had shown him that humans too could embrace wonder, loyalty, and courage. Her life, her secret, and her love had left him forever changed. Taran knew that the world was vast, and the stars held more mysteries than anyone could understand. But he also knew that one life, one act of love could bridge the gap between worlds. Mira had done that, and he would carry her memory, her spirit, and her love with him for the rest of his life. Ryan stood alone beside the glowing river. The blue crystals under the water shimmered softly, casting gentle light on his face. The night sky above the colony was calm and wide, filled with bright stars that stretched endlessly across the black. He had come to this place every evening since Lara's passing. It was where they had always sat together, sharing quiet talks, laughter, and moments that needed no words. Now the chair beside him was empty. The silence of the night felt heavier without her voice. The small grave beneath the tall silver trees was marked by a simple stone. Ryan had placed it there himself, carving only one line on it with his old tools. The line said, "She came from the stars, but she was my home." He often found himself speaking to her even though she was gone. "You would like the river tonight, Lara?" he said softly as the light rippled across the water. "It glows brighter than ever. Maybe that is your doing." The colony lights in the distance were dim. The people had returned to their daily work. They came sometimes to visit him, bringing food and kind words, but most of the time Ryan preferred being alone. He felt closest to her when no one else was around. He spent his days repairing old machines for the colony children, It gave him purpose and kept his hands busy. But every night when the twin suns sank below the horizon, he returned to the river. The nights were peaceful yet filled with quiet longing. Weeks passed and he began to notice small changes around the grave. The flowers he had planted were not normal anymore. They glowed faintly under the moonlight. The grass near the stone grew taller and greener, even though the soil was dry. At first he thought it was only his imagination, but when he touched the petals they felt warm like gentle light instead of cool leaves. He remembered the stories Lara had once told her students. She said that Myron was a living planet, and the crystals carried energy that connected every living being. Now, as he sat beside her resting place, he began to believe those words were true. One evening, while he was repairing a small generator near the house, the device suddenly hummed to life even though it had no power core attached. It glowed with the same soft silver light he had seen in Lara's eyes during her final moments. Ryan froze. The light pulsed once, then faded. He placed his hand over the generator and smiled sadly. "I know that touch," he whispered. As the days turned to months, Ryan grew weaker. His hands trembled more and his steps became slower, but his heart was calm. He had learned to accept what had happened. The sadness was still there, but it was now mixed with a strange peace. Every morning he watched the young children run to school near his house. Sometimes they stopped and waved. "Morning, Grandpa Ryan," they called. He would wave back with a smile. Many of those children were the ones Lara had once taught. They still remembered her gentle voice and her glowing smile. The colony respected both of them, for they were part of its history. One night, a heavy storm swept across Miren. The wind howled through the trees, and lightning flashed above the hills. Ryan stayed inside, sitting near the window. He felt no fear. He had faced stronger storms in his lifetime. Yet this storm felt different. The lights in his house flickered, and then the power went out. The only light came from the river outside, which now shone brighter than ever. He walked to the door, leaning on his cane, and stepped outside. Rain fell hard against his skin, cold and sharp, but he barely noticed it. The entire river was glowing with a soft silver hue. The light moved gently across the surface like waves of living energy. He walked closer to the water. His eyes widened as he saw something taking form above it. Two faint lights floated side by side, one golden and one silver. They moved slowly toward him, dancing softly in the air. The golden one reminded him of sunlight. The silver one shimmered like moonlight. The storm quieted around him. He felt warmth spreading through the air even though rain still fell. His heart beat faster and a deep calm filled his mind. He knew what he was seeing. It was her, Lara, he said in a trembling voice. The lights came closer. They stopped just a few steps away, and though they made no sound, he felt her presence in his heart. The golden light pulsed gently beside it as if welcoming her. "You came back," Ryan whispered. "I told you I would be waiting." He felt something brush against his hand, soft and warm like sunlight. His old memories came rushing back. Their first meeting on the ship to Miren, her laughter during the building of the first dome, their quiet dinners, the day she had smiled when he gave her a crystal pendant. Every moment they had shared flashed before his eyes like pages of a beautiful story. The lights began to rise slowly into the air, circling above him. Ryan took a step forward. The silver light drifted down once more, touching his shoulder like a gentle hand. He felt strength returning to his tired body, not in a physical way but in his spirit. He closed his eyes and spoke softly. "If you are still here, then I am not alone." The golden light brightened as if answering him. The wind eased, the rain slowed, and the storm clouds began to part. For the first time in months, Ryan felt warmth deep inside his chest, as if his heart itself was glowing. When he opened his eyes again, the lights had begun to rise higher. He watched them dance together above the river, spinning slowly in the air. Then, without warning, they merged into one large light that shone so brightly it turned the whole river silver. Ryan smiled, tears running down his cheeks. He did not look away. The light drifted upward toward the sky, and as it did, he felt a pull deep inside his heart. It was gentle, not painful, like a call from far away. He looked at the chair beside him, the one where Lara used to sit. He placed his hand on it and whispered, "Wait for me." Then he looked up at the light again. His breathing slowed and his eyes grew soft. He whispered her name once more. In the morning, when the storm was gone and the sun rose over Miren, The colony workers found his chair empty by the river. His tools were placed neatly beside it. The only thing left behind was the crystal pendant he had once given her, now shining faintly with both gold and silver light. They searched for him for hours, but found no trace. The footprints near the river ended at the edge of the water. The colonists believed he might have fallen into the river during the storm. But there was no sign of struggle and no body was ever found. Some said it was the will of the planet, that Mirren had taken him back to the one he loved. Others said it was something beyond their understanding, a joining of two souls that refused to be apart. Years passed. The colony grew larger, and new generations came, yet the story of Ryan and Lara remained. Children were told that if they sat by the river on calm nights, they might see two lights dancing together above the water, one gold and one silver. The people began to call that place the River of Promise. Every year, couples came to the riverbank to make vows of love. They said that the lights blessed those who believed in true love that could cross all limits, even the boundaries between worlds. In time, the colony built a small monument near the river. It was made of crystal and shaped like two lights twisting around each other. At the base, they engraved Ryan's words. "She came from the stars, but she was my home." Even after 100 years, the legend never faded. Travelers from other colonies came to see the river. Some said that when the twin suns set and the water turned silver, they could still hear faint laughter in the wind and feel a soft warmth around them. No one knew if the story was real or only a beautiful tale passed down through generations. But the elders of the colony who had known Ryan and Lara smiled whenever someone asked. They said love like theirs did not end. It simply changed form. On one quiet night long after, a child playing by the river saw two lights floating gently above the water. The child ran to tell the others, and when they came, they saw it too. The lights circled each other in silence before rising high into the sky and fading among the stars. And in that moment, everyone watching understood that some promises never break. Some hearts never stop beating, even when the bodies are gone. Ryan and Lara were together again, not in the house by the river or the colony they helped build, but among the stars where their story had truly begun.